everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do crazy stupid stuff, but instead do smart, meaningful stuff that helps you get your brand wherever it is that you're trying to go. So first of all, you guys might hear what's a little wrong with Tracy's voice there? I just spent the weekend at the U13 Provincials in Black Falls, which we did not win, but we performed very, very well at. But my voice is still recovering from that. So I'm going to let Tyler do a whole bunch of talking today. This is why I have guests on the show, so we don't have to listen to Tracy's 12-year-old boy voice making squeaky noises. But all that aside, we are not here to talk about voices. Well, we're kind of here to talk about voices, actually, brand voices. We're going to be talking about the concept of brand psyche today. And don't you worry, we're going to give you a definition of that so you can be like, what is that? Because it's one of these things that really is tied to like the deep foundational identity of your brand, who you are, why you exist, all of these good things. And there's a lot of things out in the market, know your why and brand identity and a whole bunch of these different phrases that really are tied to this foundational level of work. So we're going to be exploring that today. And if you happen to be joining us live, we are very excited for you to do that. And we're also very excited for you to get into the conversation. So whether you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, there is this awesome post a comment feature. And we would highly encourage you to use that. So if you have a question as part of the conversation today, or you have an experience, an insight, a perspective that you would like to share, we would love to hear that. The more perspectives that we have as part of the conversation, the more robust we can make the conversation for all of us. So please feel free to share, even if you I want to frame this today because I feel like we have a lot of like non-marketing experts that watch the show. And in fact, that is why the show exists, because there's a lot of people out there who are trying to do marketing who don't identify as a marketing expert. But you have your own experiences, you have your own knowledge that are also a really valuable part of the conversation. So wherever you are in your brand psyche marketing journey, I really encourage you to share your perspective, because that is something that could help someone else. And if you don't share it, then it can't help someone else. And 3 voices are better than 2 voices, and 4 voices are better than 3 voices, and the more voices, the more the barrier on this show. Okay, with that being said, we do have a special guest today, Tyler Massie, who is joining us to talk about this conversation around brand psyche. So before we get too deep into the conversation, Tyler, can you please introduce yourself to the peeps and tell us how you ended up in this realm of brand psyche work?
Thanks very much, Tracy. Yes, I'm Tyler Massie. I'm founder of a company called Brand Psyche, and we specialize in using kind of where psychology meets marketing, and with a heavy emphasis on brands, hence the name Brand Psyche. I found a company about 5 years ago based on my experience kind of entering the marketing space and learning along the way that whereas most clients are looking for a tangible output that will help them do their marketing better, so they're looking for a social media calendar or a website or a PDF that they can share as a sell sheet, that kind of thing. When it came to doing that work, I never understood how to do it authentically and accurately without first knowing what the personality of the brand was. What's at the heart of the decisions that you would make down the line in marketing that represent, again, with authenticity, consistency, and clarity to that brand, to that company. And primarily, it's at the common intersection of psychology and marketing, like I said. And a lot of people have been surprised about that along the way. And anytime that I kind of looked into researching how to do marketing better, psychology was always flashing right back at me. And the reason is that, and my very strong belief is that brands have personality. It's as soon as they're created and they are present, they exist, people are forming opinions on them based on their feelings. And you can subtly influence these feelings and the impression and the connection that your consumer, your target market has with the brand. Now, Brand Psyche itself went a little bit deeper in and geeked out into the psychology behind what's called archetypes and archetyping as a model to do this. And so that archetypes come from, just to geek out a little bit further, archetypes come from Carl Jung, Jungian psychology. And it's based on the idea that people connect and relate to symbols and icons across kind of time and space. They really resonate with us, and they allow us to communicate and connect with each other. So with that model, I discovered a process, built upon it, and I'll give you examples throughout the conversation of archetypes in practice, that kind of thing. But it helps result in my ultimate belief, which is that marketing is storytelling. And like any good story, there's a narrative arc, and there's conflict, and there's tension, but there's also character. And so that's where we go deep into the idea of personality.
Oh, okay. So I mean,
there's a lot there to dig in.
Do you guys see why I invited Tyler to the show, though, right? Like, you guys know the show. Okay, let's start with the concept of personality, because I remember being in my first marketing job, 23 years old, and thinking about like brands like characters in a movie, right? And just really appreciating that there is this personality, and there's a tendency for people to look at these types of characterization when they're looking at their ideal client profile, but it's less common when people are looking at it as themselves, as a brand, and saying like, what is our brand personality, and looking at it like, what's a personality of a person that I like, or maybe I don't like. So let's start at the layer of personality. And can you share some things that maybe some questions you might ask, or some ways to look at a brand that would help people to extract what that personality is?
Excellent. Well, just to jump off on your point that a brand is expressed externally, and that's when we think marketing, but it's lived internally. And right. So just to your point, it exists inside of the company, and it like anything grows its own personality over time, which is culture. But I always like to think about the idea that when people wear clothing, for example, they're making certain choices about what they like and how they want to kind of represent their style out to the public. Why would anybody wear a logo, for example? Maybe you have a favorite band or that kind of thing. You're doing it to say, this represents me, but also this helps me connect with others because of some sort of shared interest or sense of community or sense of belonging. And so it becomes these like identifiers that we can connect with ourselves and with others along the way. And then to loop it back around at that higher level of personality and marketing, one of the biggest mistakes that I hear along the way, and it's very common, and no judgment here, but most businesses will say, you know, our product or our service is the best for everybody. Like they want to reach the largest possible because they're passionate and they believe in what they do, and they think it'll appeal to everybody. And that's kind of a mistake, because you have just this broad approach to how you market, the stories you tell, and how people are going to connect with you. And the reason is, when you're speaking to everybody, you're kind of speaking to nobody. And so people can't actually see themselves inside of that conversation. And the same occurs with people. You might have like a gut instinct that somebody's personality really jives with you or not. And there's various reasons for that. You and I were talking just before we started about the idea of being an extrovert versus an introvert. We're both extroverted. We can tell that about ourselves, so we connect a little bit deeper. That's not to say we won't connect with introverts, but we know that there's some sort of shared kind of understanding between us. And that's actually what people look for in the businesses, whether it's consumer-based products or business-to-business services. We want to connect based on some sort of sense of shared values, some sort of shared understanding. We want to be seen, and we want to support others that are like-minded in that way. And that's kind of how personality at the brand level wraps in together.
Yeah. Oh, this comes up for me a lot. I probably shared this on the show before, but I had a client at one point who had said to me, "I agree with almost everything you say." And I was like, this is very interesting because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who agrees with everything I say. But like that, I always thought that was a really good example of where, or maybe not being like super conscious that we're agreeing with people, right? And I also very often think about, honestly, I can't remember what car brand it was. It was a truck brand. But one year for Super Bowl, who had a commercial with a whole bunch of golden retriever puppies. And when I was a kid, we had golden retrievers, and I was just like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, that's not everyone grew up with golden retriever puppies. Although I think the majority of the population think that golden retriever puppies are very cute. But like, when we think about the personality of brands and how that might manifest in a marketing scenario, we are making those decisions to some degree based on our own personality. We chose golden retrievers and not French bulldogs because we like golden retrievers. Not to say that there's anything wrong with French bulldogs, but like, this is something we like, right? And we chose that. And I think that a lot of times marketers get caught up in like, what do I serve to my client? What does my client want to see? And at the end of the day, if what your client, let's call them your quote unquote client, what you think your client wants to see, or who you think your client is, what they want to see, is something that you are not at all interested in showing them, then are they really your ideal client? So like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, using, like, I guess, being your brand self in terms of connecting with the right people. Not all people. Nobody will connect with all people. I always say to people, even if you're faking it, you'll only connect with certain people. You won't connect with all people. So like, how does this play into this connection with our external marketing and connecting to our ideal clients?
Well, you raised a few great points, which is that this largely occurs at a subconscious level, hence the idea of psychology and personality associated with it. And your examples are fantastic. The choice of dog, cars, even just as a model, they're representing something about a lifestyle that you believe in and want to portray. And just going back to what I said earlier about that mistake that gets made along the way of just being everything to everybody all at once, you're not really connecting in a level that resonates or has matter and purpose. And then to just kind of tie this back to the idea of personality connecting with a direct audience, you have your brand, as I say, the brand has its personality, and then typically, and that's through archetypes, which we'll get into in a moment. But typically, the ideal target market is going to resonate more directly and specifically with those elements of your brand personality positioning. So I guess it would be helpful just to explain a little bit of this model, and I can give you some kind of common examples of using archetypes in practice.
Yes, please.
Because businesses and brands, whether they follow this model or this process, it occurs, and they've been doing it all along, for sure, maybe without totally realizing it. So I'm going to just get a little geeky here, but marketers love the idea of a perceptual map. And that's an X and a Y axis with 4 quadrants. So the Jungian psychology says personality, and like Myers, basically any personality test that you've come across, like Myers-Briggs, DISC even to a certain extent, they're all based actually on Jungian psychology and archetype personality models. So that axis is an axis of the individual versus the group. So do we prop up a leader that inspires us and we follow along and we're led to a greater kind of success reality, whatever that is? Or on the other side, do we believe in the group, that connection with others, a rising tide lifts all boats? It's the rich tapestry that props us all up together, kind of thing. So that's the x-axis. And on the y-axis, you have freedom versus order. So are you the type of person that's going to go your own way, do things differently? You're highly risk-oriented. You don't mind being a trendsetter on your own, versus on the other side, structure, order, control, a delegation of trust. The idea that the big behemoth is going to protect, take care, nurture us, support us, that kind of thing. The market dominant. When you put those spectrums together, you get kind of like a clock where you get 12 different personality positions, and those are your archetypes. So I'm just going to give you a couple of quick examples. On the individual side, flat out all the way, doesn't care about kind of freedom or order. It's all about the individual. You have Nike. Just do it. That's their literal, award-winning slogan, and it encapsulates what that kind of positioning, clustering of values is. Just do it. Perform, lead, commit, success. On the other side, in the group side, you have an empath archetype, or you might have heard it as a caregiver. This is a selfless position that is completely nurturing and supportive. The self doesn't exist. This would be like Johnson & Johnson, but a better example would be Zappos, which is a shoe company, but you could famously call their customer service agent up and say, I'd like to order a pizza. And they'll get that pizza to you, because no matter what they do and what they're supposed to do, they exist in support of you. Two more I'll give you, just the easy ones on the freedom and the order. On the freedom side, you have Maverick, the outlaw, the rebel. This would be, Apple when they came out with their famous 1984 Super Bowl commercial, and they were visually just like destroying the screen, the authoritarian screen, with a sledgehammer to say, break down the norms and expectations. On the other side of the equation, the order, you have the titan or the ruler, and that's all about luxury, prestige, authority. The consumer delegates their authority to that brand. And it becomes a status symbol actually too. So for example, Tiffany's, as soon as it's a titan scenario when you just see a color and you associate that with a brand. Not enough said. And that's the color of blue, but you're also, kind of representing that I'm a Tiffany's type of person. The last thing, because there are 12 around them, and I won't just spend all our time describing what those characters are, but I just want to do a compare and contrast between two different ones that live more in the freedom others side. And that's an intimate archetype. So seduction, luxury, the powerful connection between two. And then you have a comic, which is pushing a little more to the freedom side, or the jester. This is about kind of cartoony, abstract feeling, letting go, humor, joy and connection that way. So why does this work, or how does this work? Products and services are largely flat. Businesses and companies are going to say, like, we do the best in terms of service, or we do the best in terms of our knowledge. But that's table stakes. Most companies hopefully can say that. So how do you differentiate? How do you stand out and say why somebody should buy your product or service versus another? So thinking about ice cream. When I say ice cream, it's largely flat. And when I say ice cream, you might kind of imagine like the taste or texture, or you might be thinking vanilla, or perhaps, your favorite type of ice cream, but ice cream is ice cream. And if I apply a character type to ice cream based on the brand, then I start to think about what color palette I can use, what fonts to choose, what my advertising style should be. And so Ben & Jerry's is your comic archetype. It's cartoony, colorful, abstract. It crowdsources its names.
Chunky monkey.
Exactly, the best. And it's goofy, right? That appeals to a certain type of market segment. You're going to buy that for that reason, because you think it's cool and fun. Compare and contrast, sitting right next to each other on the wheel, but very different, is Haagen-Dazs, which is a little more luxury, but it's about that intimacy and seduction. So an advertisement for Haagen-Dazs is going to be sultry, dark reds and blacks. It's going to be a champagne bucket with two spoons sticking out saying, can't you just imagine the intimate, lovely evening you're going to have with your partner or date or whatever that is. And so you get a feeling of the style and tone associated with the personality of the brand. And then you say, does that appeal to me? Does it speak to me directly? Then I will become a consumer and hopefully a lifelong one.
Okay, so this is bringing up a like chicken and egg scenario for me in terms of like I have my perspective, my perspective from an authenticity point of view. But I feel like there's a lot of people who could be like, well, I want to target luxury customers. So then I would go with this kind of archetype. And now I'm trying to be that, which may or may not be in alignment with who I naturally am. So like, what are the pros and cons of choosing? And again, because we said a lot of this is subconscious, right? So if we're not conscious of it, it's very hard to make a conscious decision about it. And so what are the pros and cons of saying, like, I want to choose this because it speaks to the audience I want, and therefore I have to change XYZ about myself, or I'm choosing the jester, but the jester is only going to speak to a specific group of people. Can you talk to us a little bit about the psychology behind the choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's hard for me to think of the cons of a system that I love and value so much. But for a business that says, okay, I want to push myself in that direction, or I know that that's where I want to be, even though it doesn't totally feel right.
Or let's look at it this way. Because let's say we're just doing it purely logically, and we're saying, okay, we've got other competitors in the market. They're already kind of hitting. I'm ice cream, right? And I've already got Haagen-Dazs over here doing the luxury thing. I already got Ben and Jerry's over here doing the Joker thing. So I gotta place myself into this other quadrant because I don't have competitors in this quadrant, which again, from a logic point of view, seems to make lots of sense. But then that archetype may or may not actually match who I am as a brand. So not so much on the like pros and cons of using archetypes, but like what happens when we logically put ourselves into a defined archetype that we are not, that we don't naturally match.
I mean, and that's why I go back to the word of authenticity, because I love it, because it's kind of a buzzword, and it's something like brands and businesses say we want to be authentic, but that actually really matters. Like you have to be honest and true to yourself in your representation. And so if you're pushing into a space that isn't that, people will subconsciously feel some sort of disconnect. And so you won't be able to grow into that market space. I do love how you recognize, though, that when you start to position brands and companies around this wheel, you start to identify competitive differentiation opportunities. And so there is some valid strategic sense in saying, okay, the market is really crowded in this positioning type, and we think that there's a real opportunity over here. The way you have to do it, though, there has to be some sort of authentic resonance that brings truth into that. And then some of the other challenges with this is your business, when you, depending on your business stage, it changes, it evolves over time. As you grow with employees, are your employees then representing the brand positioning and the culture that you believe in? Has the market changed? Sometimes there's valid reasons to look at kind of spaces that you're in and spaces that you should be in. You just really have to go through a deep kind of inventory and assessment to say, how can we exhibit in the best authentic, realistic way possible, because we don't want to create that disconnect. Right. And then the other thing I'll say, like just as the big pro, is market niches. And again, this gets at battling this idea of for everybody at all times. But the best thing a company can do is to find a niche and carve out into it, and then hopefully do a little bit of work in understanding that personality, and then saying how we can reflect it. And then I've got one more other kind of level to add to this, which is, for the purposes of this conversation and an introduction, I can give you examples of a brand that is an archetype. But much like if I was to apply a personality label to you, Tracy, you might see yourself sometimes in a maverick, but you also might see yourself sometimes in a sage or a magician, one that I really resonate with. But other times I'm a universal. And that's because we have multiple layers and levels to our personality, and so do brands. And so the work that we would do is to try to uncover the unique combination of 2 to 3 that kind of factors all of this in together to say this position represents who we are, and this position is where we want to be, and there's an opportunity there. How can we kind of multifaceted personality and then kind of reach those spaces directly?
This is a very good point, because I was going to ask you about the scale here and like how these personalities overlap, because humans do have, I don't want to say multiple personalities, but we have lots of inputs into our personalities. And it's funny because when you were explaining, and I like looked up what the 12 were in advance because I like to be informed, but I was like, ooh, I like really identify with the sage, but I also really identify with the maverick. And like this, I think, is a place where people miss opportunities, because you can be both, because you are both. And when we look at, again, like if we take this purely up to the logic level and we're like, okay, well, a sage does A, B, and C, and a maverick does A, B, and C. So those 6 things are not the same. So I have to choose one, right? Except there's actually ways as humans we do both of those things at the same time. We can bring energy and wisdom. We can do a combination. And if we're looking at it pure and simple as like there's 12 things and I can be one of the 12 and my competitor is that, and so I have to be this, which is the exact opposite of it, in order to quote unquote win in the market, when I don't even know what winning is, but that's a conversation for a different show. Then like I'm missing a lot of opportunity there, because one, I'm not tapped into who am I? Because if we're both competing in this arena, but I'm actually maybe more authentically that, I might have a better possibility of competing on that than that other person does. But yeah, I mean, I guess really what I'm saying is I feel like we miss a lot if we're just trying to be like, I got to be one of these 12, and then I'll do exactly the things that the profile says I should do.
Yeah, exactly. This is multi-dimensional kind of as a system. And so that is why we try to look at these different elements, and then not just say kind of in a silo, you're the sage, and then sometimes you're the maverick. It's actually, what does that personality look like combined, and then we add in other elements as well. And I find it kind of, it's really ironic being in the industry that we're in, or the line of work we're in, because our job largely is to put things into boxes and apply labels. It's how we relate to each other.
Well, that's not my job.
Well,
I've interpreted it as, how do you get out of these?
And so that's what I was going to say. The irony is, like, none of us want to be in a box. No. I certainly don't. I don't want to be prejudged based on kind of certain attributes that look one way, but we're multidimensional kind of by nature, and brands exist the same way. So it's really in the combination that you then strategically go to express or describe or understand. And there's one other part of this too that you're kind of hitting on that I want to talk about, which is that true and great creativity comes out of tension. So it's the idea that all these factors are at play at the same time, and they're creating some sort of conflict. The most interesting ones are the opposing forces on the wheel, and we all have that in us at all times. It's very unique for you to just be clustered kind of in one specific side. That's known to occur and exist, but largely, yes, I believe that creativity, virality, interest, something that's interesting, it comes out of those interesting tension moments to say, well, gosh, I love the structure that comes from like knowledge and organization and having that, but I also, want to buck the system always. And so how do those two live together? And that's actually where, the magic happens, so to speak.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because I feel like our brains are kind of pre-programmed to think in dichotomies, right? I can be this or I can be this. And it's interesting that you give that example, as I want to like buck the system, but I also like appreciate structure, because I've actually shared this with a lot of people about this show. And so I'm like, this show in the conversation has almost no structure. It is a free flow conversation. There's a title. We go where we go today. We have no defined destination. There's no top 3 things that we know we're going to get to, right? We might get to some, we always get somewhere, but we never know where we're going to get to. But there is also a layer of structure in that I use this platform and these are the days I send reminders and blah, 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 blah. And so one of the things that I speak about very commonly is that what is the structure that makes sense for you, right? So like a structure for an activity that is more sage related, it might look different than the structure for a Maverick type of scenario, but that doesn't mean that you can't have both, that there is an opportunity to look at that. And I totally agree with you. And I wrote this down and I'm going to use this as the quote of the day. Well, you might say something else, genius. There may be another quote of the day, but definitely this one is that true and great creativity comes out of tension. Like, we're trying to make everything so easy in our marketing and in our conversations. And we put people in a room to quote unquote brainstorm ideas with already a predefined outcome of what we're supposed to get out of this meeting. And they're like, did we brainstorm? Because I'm pretty sure we weren't given the space to do that. There's so many things. And I'm seeing it more and more. And I refer to it as like the Amazon disease.
Yes.
Like Amazon is convinced us we can have anything delivered to us in 48 hours. And so then our brains just get programmed to believe that I can have anything delivered to me within 48 hours, including a deep sense of self.
I agree completely about everything you're saying. And it's that we've moved towards a frictionless society. Everything's ease of use, quick, one click. And the moment that any type of friction or tension is introduced, our natural inclination is to avoid that because it's uncomfortable. And I'm going to just give you a kind of a little tangent example of introducing tension into a system. But Facebook at the time had put in a lot of work to help analyze people's profiles for security flaws or issues, and the work they had done was so good that it could do it instantaneously at a click of the button, and the adoption rate actually was low. It was at the floor. And they realized that by introducing a little bit of lag into the system, it helped people think that it was working. So it's an example of introducing tension in, because our seamless, like the thing that we think we want, seamless ease of use isn't actually getting us anywhere or giving us some sort of deep fulfilling need, right? I'm a big believer in, again, from psychology, but the idea of delayed gratification versus instant gratification, right? And marketing and Amazon have said, you can have anything you want. You matter. You're important. You can have it all now. But what comes in the waiting? And again, that's where the effort, that's where the work comes. And then ultimately, I think exponential success, not linear success, but actual scaled growth.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, our brains appreciate linearness.
Linear,
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, being linear, the process of things being linear. But in nature, there's just not a lot of things that are linear, right? Like even if you look at how a human being develops in terms of height, right? Like you grow a lot and then you don't grow anymore. And then you kind of shrink, right? It's not linear at all. And like, pretty much nothing in nature is linear, but then we think like marketing, it should be linear.
Yes, a great point.
All of these humans that are non-linear who are creating and consuming marketing, why do we want this to be linear? And what's the benefit? What's the benefit of this being linear? Is there a benefit of it being linear? And in fact, it's just not linear. So we can pretend that it's linear, except it's not. And I think this is interesting because Peter is commenting here, this concept about a case of one person versus many personalities. And even in that, there's complexity, right? Because then I think, like, I always think this about the Harry Potter houses, right? Like, there's sometimes where I'm like very Hufflepuff, and the Sorting Hat has decided that I'm Hufflepuff. But there's also sometimes where I'm very Gryffindor, and there's sometimes where I'm very Ravenclaw. And like, I also like to think that I'm like wise and clever. So there's even some little Slytherin in there, right? We are like all of the things. We're not just one of the things. So even if you're looking at a business and you have one person who is many things, and now you have many people who are many things, there's like, I don't even know what we want to call that layer of complexity, but it's a very complex layer, right? There's lots of complexity. But then at the same time, when we think about like, how can we harness that like multi-dimensionality in a world where so many people are thinking linearly and are thinking only on a singular dimension? And my competitors are going to go with they're going to be the sage, right? They're just going to be the sage. And I'm going to be like, well, sometimes I'm a sage and sometimes I'm a joker. And sometimes I'm a maverick and sometimes I'm all the things, right? There's actually an opportunity then to connect with people who also identify as that, right? Who, again, maybe don't identify as having multiple personalities, but do identify as being multidimensional. Yes. And it's interesting because I feel like in the past, maybe 5-ish years on LinkedIn, there's been a lot of more people who are talking about like multidimensionality and hybridity and all of these types of things that like, I'm not just this. I am a marketer and I'm a mom and I'm a community member and I'm a coach and I'm this and I'm like, and I'm actually all of the things at once. I'm not like only a mom when I'm a mom. Like, I'm a mom all the time. And sometimes I end up momming people on my show because that is just part of me. But like, I am all of the things. And so I also have a theory. Actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this theory, Tyler. That like the more parts of our personality that we reveal to the public, the easier it is for people to trust us because they see us as multidimensional instead of seeing us as singular, like, oh, Tracy's just here to sell marketing services. Like, I'm not going to trust that much. But if I'm like, oh, Tracy had this insight about marketing, and also she had this insight about parenting, and also she was coaching this weekend, and also she got caught in the rain, and that was hilarious, right? Like, now all of these things come together into like, that's a real person.
Well, and, I think you do that really well. Also, just to kind of give you a shout out, which is you enable people to connect on a beyond just that surface level. We do a business, we provide a service, we're good at it, that kind of thing. We get to connect on the more interesting thing that I think matters to us all, which is that we are multidimensional, that you're a mom, that your kid was playing softball this weekend. Like these are things that we can grasp onto and connect. When you mention the example, and I love storytelling and I love analogies, so here we are. But Harry Potter, I learn a lot now more about you and the type of personality that you have just based on that example, even if it wasn't to your purpose. But that's because those are the elements that really matter. And so the work we do is we apply it to companies. Again, you can find a lot of these personality tests online that say, answer 10 questions and I'll tell you you're one of 12 personalities. That's great, but it's pretty surface level. Right. And again, to your point, we don't want to be put in boxes. That's that multidimensionality thing. It's very difficult to create a box for all of the different permutations and combinations that kind of exist. So the first step is kind of recognition, awareness, and understanding that there's so many levels at play. But then I would just temper that just a little bit, this stream, to say, you don't want to meet somebody and say, these are all the cool elements and personality attributes kind of all at once, just in a shotgun blast to the face of who you are.
Which one of these do you like? Pachow!
Just imagining just like a tie-dye shirt mixed with like skater shoes, mixed with one of those propeller hats, and you're just like, what is going on here? No, maybe you like all of those different things, but you put a little bit of order and structure around it, and then you just kind of, relationships, like anything, like the one thing that makes this not kind of one-dimensional is time. So over time, you have opportunities to just connect a little further and a little deeper and sprinkle in other kind of layers. And it's through recognizing your multiple personalities, and then kind of playing them out. And then the other thing, because we're relating this to people, because brands are people, I'm a different Tyler than I am here today with you, Tracy, and I am with my brother or my family. Like, there's different Jungian psychology would say, like, personas, the masks that we put on, that kind of thing. But I would say more so it's just deeply, we kind of draw in and access various aspects of our personality that shine. The thing that matters most is the thing that's kind of being identified or perhaps even challenged at the time. That's the part that comes out. But as you develop a relationship over time, you get the opportunity to kind of express more. So I would just caution to say, you don't have to just be this smorgasbord melange mess all at once. But as long as you're kind of leading forward authentically, there are little nuggets or little branches that can be grabbed and snagged upon. And then, because we enter into every relationship, whether it be with a person or a business or a product, we go in blind. The business themselves, they know their business. They're the expert at it. They could probably over communicate on the subject, as I'm doing now. But to the general audience, they know nothing. And so you don't want to just kind of come in all at once. You want to just, ease down the story, ease down the journey together of what it means to be a part of this relationship with a person or a brand or a business.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a really critical component too, because I tell this people about social media posts all the time. Like, you cannot say all of the things in one social media post. One, that's why they put a character count or cap on it, right? Like, you can't. They don't let you, but you actually can't. It's not possible. It would be too confusing for everybody. And I love what Peter is saying here about the target. If your target market is 100% homogeneous, then you can be one thing, but few markets are like that. And I think too, this comes back to authenticity, right? Like, there are some, I always say this about my knee surgeon. For my ACL, I had knee surgery, and I'm like, my knee surgeon is a knee surgeon. Although he's probably also a dad or a husband or an uncle or something, right? Like, he's also multidimensional, but really I want him to be a knee surgeon. I don't need him to be a jokester. I would really like him to be like the sage. And so, like, it can work. It can work in specific scenarios. And there can also be consumers that are looking for that, right? Like, I want that just for that. I don't want it to be confused by other things. But that's not true in all scenarios. And so then if I'm trying to be that, and it's not true in my specific scenario, then it's unhelpful to me. But also, I just find that if anytime you're trying to be something you're not, I say this all the time, there's a reason why professional actors get paid the amount of money that they do, because not all of us can just go and pretend to be somebody completely different successfully.
It is hard. It is hard work. Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, I want to reiterate what you said about this developing a relationship over time, because I also think a lot of times people aren't creating the space for that in marketing. They are saying, like, I gotta go out with this campaign and get this amount of leads, and everybody needs to know everything they need to know about my service and my product in this like 7-part email funnel. Like, whew. this is a heavy lift, right? Especially
Yeah,
for something that most people ignore nowadays.
There's an expectation that if I build it, they will come. If I put that message out, they'll convert. Like, see it one time and they're gonna click buy, and it doesn't work that way. Kind of for all the reasons that we're talking about. It's a relationship that takes effort, energy, and time. It's a buyer's journey, right? And it's a rare thing to kind of, it's possible, it's out there, but it's kind of the one of a million shot of somebody seeing something and rushing out to buy it just because they, it's timing, right? But then it's kind of having it locked into your mind that product, solution, service exists for you. And that becomes the frequency and the repetition of the message to reinforce it, because you'll never hit it off kind of that one time right on, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you can get lucky, right? But
Yeah.
no one built a dependable funnel off of lucky.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of mention too what you said about, you can also have your very strong belief system. Like, I am a business that serves in a certain way. This is my personality type. I'm the type. But if depending on your product or service, if the market doesn't expect it, then you've got a misalignment. So just to your point of you have to give them, it's the old philosophical, if a person cuts a tree in the woods, does anybody care if nobody's around, right? So you do need to kind of, you have to take into account your internal kind of personality, what you want to be. That matters. That's authenticity. But then you also have to understand the conversation and dance with the market or other people or the environment, because that's also super important.
Yeah, it makes me think of like kind of finance and insurance technology, right? So there is an inherent desire for trust and dependability in banking and insurance, right? And this is just something that, like, one, especially insurance, right? If I'm buying insurance, I am probably risk averse, and so I'm looking for something that's like very dependable to fill a gap. And then if a brand personality is like the jokester, then you would be like, I don't know how I feel about the jokester and my financial security. Right?
Exactly.
And it's interesting though too to look at. So like, I myself, I might be identify as Maverick or jokester or sage mashup. This is how I identify mostly. But like, when I'm looking for specific services, I'm not looking for exactly that either. Like, I'm not actually looking for myself in another brand. I'm looking for something that I need from that brand that matches me to some degree, but also complements me to some degree. It's one of the things I always say about coaching. Like, all of the coaches I choose for myself are like very zen, like down to earth, grounded. And I'm very like enthusiastic and energetic and bubbly. And this is a very good balance for me, because that I can go in this direction by myself, but I can't go in this direction by myself. And so I need somebody to go, if I want to go in that direction, I need somebody who's actually compatible, but different than me. And I think that's another interesting thing about the archetypes, because I might not be looking for identical alignment. I'm looking for something in particular that I'm looking for.
And again, you need that similarity. So one element, one attribute, maybe a similar personality type of positioning, but you need a little bit of tension. You need to be challenged. We don't want to be surrounded by yes people all the time, because there's no real actual growth that can come from that. So I think it's really wise to kind of represent, to acknowledge that. And I'll just point out like how I use the tool. I think about the optometrist when you go in for your eye exam and they're just flipping the lenses and they're saying this one or this one, this one or this one. And I think about that a lot, because I use that then to look at the world. And so I use it professionally in the work that I do, but I also look around and say, it helps me understand people, businesses, products, like my relationship with the environment at large, by just kind of flipping through these archetype lenses, flipping through the brands and through these lenses and saying, oh, you're appealing to this quality in my nature, or oh, this is different. Like, I feel uncomfortable. and I want to learn more or reach into that space a little bit more. So as a tool, it helps me interact with the world better. And then I'll just point out, I didn't ask you to do a personality test or anything like that, but I think I kind of just like picked up right away that you're a Maverick Sage, and it's through that ability of just kind of flipping lens, and then it allows me to have more deeper. I wouldn't be that position, but I respect it. I would be more of a magician, kind of empath kind of place, but we sure connect on other levels, and we can learn to understand each other. And so it's multi-dimensional. There's no one quick, magic bullet solution to marketing. There's no one quick magic bullet solution to brand archetyping. But it's a helpful tool in the toolbox for sure.
Well, and I think you make a really important point here too, is that it's not just like Maverick Sages that can be friends with Maverick Sages and magician empaths that can serve a client that's a magician empath, right? Like,
yes.
This is about knowing who you are and using that intentionally to go to market and create the relationships that fill the gap for other people. And I, as a Sage Maverick, might have a lot of clients have a lot of clients that are empaths. That's for sure. And so it's very interesting because while I can identify with that, because even when I'm I create the axis in my head, right? And if I'm going to put myself on the individual versus group axis, then I am far on the group axis, but I'm pulled in different directions because of other parts of the equation. I can understand that because we have that desire for group and community in common, and we can build on that and go in a specific direction. Whereas there's probably other combinations where they would look at Sage Maverick and be like, "Ugh, that looks terrifying. I don't want a marketing consultant who's a Sage Maverick. Just get me out of here." And that's fine. But me trying to not be Sage Maverick is at the end of the day, not scalable, right? So you can fake it for a little while, but I won't enjoy doing the work. I probably won't be that productive for my client. I don't want that either, right? So why would I go be that? Also, let's end it here in terms of building your network of people who are different than you. Because if I meet somebody who is much better matched to an empath magician, then I happen to know an empath magician that I can be you should come and meet Tyler, or vice versa, right? Oh, you could really use a Maverick Sage, so you should meet Tracy, right?
Totally.
Being able to build up your network of people that are complementary to you without looking at each other as competition, even though Tyler and I were in a pitch coaching session once together and giving pretty much exactly the same. Oh, this is good because now it's not just one person giving it, it's multiple people, and they take it more seriously when it's two different people giving similar feedback. But this can be so helpful and so powerful in the overarching conversation in which you're building your brand. It allows you to build that expertise, but also to build the community. And I think that that's something really important too, especially if we're looking at this from a competitive.
Absolutely.
I want to be different than my competitor. Yeah, great. Go be different than your competitor. But that doesn't mean you have to be magician empaths are terrible.
Yeah. Oh no. Or scared of your competitors, right? To your point, there's space for all of us to kind of play in, and it's my great belief that constraint breeds creativity. Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to pigeonhole. We're not trying to box in. We're not trying to say my way or your way, and one's better than the other. It's without judgment. It's just to kind of recognize that we're just rich, multi-dimensional brands, beings, businesses, and there's a place for all of us to get along and understand each other, and then hopefully connect. Because I think ultimately our goal is, even though it's on one side of a spectrum, but ultimately our goal is to build a better kind of future for us all. I think that's, a great.
Build a better mousetrap.
Yeah, no.
Only certain age demographics get that one. And if you don't, reach out to me and Tyler. We can explain it to you. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. Where is the best place for people to connect with you if they are interested in learning more about brand psyche and brand archetypes?
Awesome. Yeah. Visit our website, brandpsyche.ca. Connect with me on LinkedIn, definitely. Tyler Massie, Massie. And I love deep one-to-one connections. I love conversations of any kind. And if you want to geek out about psychology, branding, marketing, definitely here for it.
Yes, and I have gotten to geek out with Tyler on that, so I can just share that that's totally going to happen if you connect with him. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights today. And if you are watching on LinkedIn, or you go to the post associated with this live on LinkedIn, Tyler is tagged on there, so you can just click on his name, and it'll take you right to his profile. So that's really easy. Thank you also to all of the peeps who joined us in the comments. Peter and Eric and Sheila, thanks for watching live. And for those of you who are watching live who were not in the comments, thank you for also watching live. I can see people, but I don't know who you are unless you comment. So next time, comment. And then I can say thank you to your name. For those of you who are participating today, or perhaps watching the replay of this conversation, just like every conversation we have on this show, the concept of brand psyches, your archetypes, your mashup archetype is not really something that can be fully explored in 60 minutes. And so if this is something that you are currently working on or that you are intrigued by, please don't let this be the last conversation you participate in. Let it be the first of many conversations that you participate in, so you can find your little unique brand psyche that can help bring your brand to life in a more effective way. With that, thank you everyone for joining us today. And until next time, permission to do you. Bye, everyone.